Hey Carey kids, welcome to Storytime. And last week we read a story about Moses and the Israelites and how God saved them from the Egyptians. God made a way where there was no way before. The Israelites needed to cross the sea and God made a way. But there was a bigger problem. From the very beginning, God's children had been running away from Him and trying to live without Him. And so they felt far from God and they didn't know how to get close to Him again. They didn't know the way. But God knew the way. And He sent His Son, Jesus, to show them. Today we're going to skip ahead to that story. It was hundreds of years after Moses, but the Israelites still remembered the time that God saved them from the Egyptians with a celebration called Passover. They would eat lamb for dinner and remember the time when a lamb died instead of them. Our story today begins at Passover after dinner, when Jesus and His friends had gone to a garden to pray. I'm reading from the Storybook Bible again, and today's story is called A Dark Night in the Garden. The wind was picking up now, blowing clouds across the moon, shrouding the garden in darkness. "Stay up with me?" Jesus asked His friends. They said yes and waited under the olive trees. But they were tired and soon they fell asleep. Jesus walked ahead alone into the dark. He needed to talk to His Heavenly Father. He knew that it was time for Him to die. They had planned it long ago, He and His Father. Jesus was going to take the punishment for all of the wrong things anybody had ever done or would ever do. "Papa, Father," Jesus cried, and He fell to the ground. "Is there any other way to get your children back? To heal their hearts? To get rid of the poison?" But Jesus knew there was no other way. All the poison of sin was going to have to go into His own heart. God was going to pour into Jesus' heart all the sadness and brokenness in people's hearts. He was going to pour into Jesus' body all the sickness in people's bodies. God was going to have to blame His Son for everything that had gone wrong, and it would crush Jesus. But there was something else, something even more horrible. When people ran away from God, they lost God. It was what happened when they ran away. Not being close to God was like a punishment, and Jesus was going to take that punishment. Jesus knew what that meant. He was going to lose His Father, and that, Jesus knew, would break His heart in two. Violent sobs shook Jesus' body, and then Jesus was quiet, like a lamb. "I trust you, Papa," He said. "Whatever you say, I will do." Suddenly, through the trees, a glitter of starlight flashed off steel. Into the quiet garden came whispers, muffled voices, clanking metal, and the sounds of boots marching. Jesus stood up. He woke His friends. "Now is the time," He said gently. "Everything that was written about me, what God has been telling His people all through the long years, it's all coming true." And into the night, with burning torches and lanterns, with swords and clubs and armor, they came, an army of soldiers. Judas led them straight to Jesus so they could arrest Him. Jesus was waiting for them. Peter leapt up, he took a sword and tried to defend Jesus. He sliced off a guard's ear, and Jesus immediately touched the guard and healed him. "Peter," he said, "this is not the way." Peter didn't realize that no army, no matter how big, could ever arrest Jesus. Not unless Jesus let them. And then Jesus, who had never done anything except love people, was arrested as if he were a criminal. Jesus' friends were afraid, so they ran away and hid in the shadows. The guards marched Jesus off and they took Him to the leaders. The leaders put Jesus on trial. "Are you the Son of God?" they asked. "I am," Jesus said. "Who do you think you are to call yourself God? You must die for calling yourself the Son of God." Not only the Romans were allowed to kill prisoners, so the leaders made a plan. "We'll tell the Romans, this man wants to be our king, and then they will crucify him." But it would be all right. It was God's plan. And Jesus said, "It was for this reason that I was born into the world." It's a little bit of a hard place to end our story, isn't it? Jesus' friends probably thought so too. They didn't fully understand that everything that was happening, no matter how sad it felt or how scary it might have been, everything that happened was part of God's plan to save the world. Tomorrow is Good Friday, so we're going to read the next part of the story as we continue to reflect on everything that Jesus did to take our sin away and save the world. Everything that God did to make a way where there was no way before. I'll see you then. Bye for now.